Japan's transformation into a modern naval power began in the late 19th century, driven by a combination of social, technological, and political changes. By the dawn of the 20th century, Japan had successfully emerged from centuries of isolation and was rapidly industrializing. The country sought to assert itself as a dominant force in East Asia, a region traditionally under the influence of Western powers such as Britain, France, and Russia. Japan's rising industrial capacity, coupled with an intense focus on military modernization, led to the formation of one of the most formidable naval forces in the world. Territorial expansion was a key aspect of Japan's ambitions. The annexation of Taiwan in 1895 marked Japan's first significant acquisition of land, demonstrating its growing power. Japan's gaze soon turned to other parts of East Asia, including Manchuria and the Korean Peninsula. By the early 20th century, Japan had established itself as a regional empire, and its military prowess became increasingly difficult to ignore. The strength of Japan's navy, in particular, was seen as a critical element in securing its territorial acquisitions and asserting its dominance in the region. Japan's strategic focus on military strength, especially its naval capabilities, was evident in its decision to modernize its fleet. As an island nation, Japan understood the vital role its navy would play in both securing its interests in Asia and projecting power beyond its borders. By the time the Russo-Japanese War erupted in 1904, Japan had positioned itself as a rising global naval power, capable of challenging even the most established European empires. The outcome of the war would not only establish Japan as a force to be reckoned with, but would also cement the role of its navy as a critical tool in shaping the nation's future. With this newly forged military strength, Japan's ambitions reached further, setting the stage for its involvement in the global conflict of World War I. This progression from regional power to a major player on the world stage was marked by a strategic partnership with Britain, and it was during this period that Japan's naval power would be called upon to safeguard the Mediterranean Sea from the growing threat of Germany's Kaiserlich Marine. This laid the foundation for the vital role Japan would play in World War I, and the challenges it faced in securing its place among the world's most powerful nations. The Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905 marked a defining moment in Japan's military history, solidifying its emergence as a formidable global power. The war was not only a test of Japan's growing naval capabilities, but also a confrontation that would challenge the established order of global imperialism. Japan's military prowess, particularly its navy, was showcased in a decisive victory over the Russian Empire, a major European power at the time. This victory dramatically shifted global perceptions, showing that an Asian nation could stand toe-to-toe with European empires. The Battle of Tsushima, fought in May 1905, was the war's pivotal moment and a testament to Japan's naval strength. In this battle, the Imperial Japanese Navy decisively destroyed the Russian Baltic Fleet, which had traveled halfway around the world to engage the Japanese forces. This victory not only crippled Russia's naval power, but also delivered a clear message to the world. Japan was now a military force to be reckoned with. The strategic importance of Tsushima lay not just in the scale of the victory, but in its timing. It effectively eliminated Russia's naval threat in the Pacific and demonstrated Japan's capability to project power far beyond its borders. Japan's victory in the Russo-Japanese War had far-reaching geopolitical implications. For one, it shattered the myth of European invincibility in Asia, inspiring other nations, particularly in Asia, to reconsider their place in the global order. This shift in perception was crucial for Japan, as it sought to establish itself as the dominant power in East Asia. The victory at Tsushima bolstered national pride and fueled Japan's aggressive expansionist policies in the years that followed, including its annexation of Korea in 1910. Moreover, the war's outcome significantly altered the balance of power in Asia, leading to a shift in alliances and fueling tensions with other imperial powers, notably Russia and China. Japan's newfound respect on the world stage was also evident in the way other nations responded to its growing military and geopolitical influence. The victory at Tsushima was particularly significant in breaking the racial and imperial prejudices of the time. It made clear that Japan, once considered a mere outsider in the global imperialist game, was now a formidable player. The Japanese people themselves experienced a surge in nationalism, with many viewing the war as a moment of national glory and a testament to Japan's modernity. The battle, and the war in general, sparked a sense of pride among the Japanese population, who began to view their nation not just as a regional power, but as a force capable of shaping the global landscape. This victory set the stage for Japan's subsequent actions in the First World War, where its naval prowess would play a critical role in safeguarding the Mediterranean, thus further cementing its role as a rising global power. Japan's increasing influence on the world stage was no longer a matter of aspiration, but a reality recognized by both Eastern and Western powers. The Anglo-Japanese alliance was a significant diplomatic agreement between the United Kingdom and the Empire of Japan, marking a departure from Britain's policy of splendid isolation and establishing Japan as a formidable power in East Asia. The alliance came at a time when Japan was rising as a military and industrial power, positioning itself as a key player in regional and global affairs. This agreement not only helped Japan secure its territorial ambitions, but also aligned it with Britain in a common struggle against the expansionist policies of Imperial Russia. Signed on January 30, 1902, at Lansdowne House in London by British Foreign Secretary Lord Lansdowne and Japanese diplomat Hayashi Tadasu. The treaty aimed to counter Russian expansion in East Asia. It recognized the independence of China and Korea, while acknowledging Britain's interests in China and Japan's interests in Korea. The alliance stipulated mutual neutrality if either nation was attacked by a third party and mutual support if attacked by two or more powers. This arrangement significantly strengthened Japan's position in the region, as it now had Britain's diplomatic and military support against the looming Russian threat. The alliance was renewed in 1905, with Japan emerging victorious in the Russo-Japanese War, which solidified its standing as an equal among European powers. This victory boosted national pride and marked the beginning of Japan's aggressive imperialism, which saw it annex Korea and expand its territorial holdings in the region. As Japan's naval power grew, it further cemented its strategic importance in the Pacific and beyond. The Anglo-Japanese alliance was renewed in 1911, and Japan's military and economic strength continued to rise. In 1914, with the outbreak of World War I, Japan's involvement took on a new dimension. Japan saw the war as an opportunity to expand its influence in Asia without direct confrontation with other European empires. Japan swiftly entered the war on the side of the Allies, and its first major action was the seizure of German territories in the Pacific, including the German-controlled islands in Micronesia. This territorial expansion was not only a strategic move to weaken Germany's influence in Asia, but also a bold statement of Japan's growing ambitions. Japan's role in the war extended beyond just territorial acquisition. The Imperial Japanese Navy played a crucial role in safeguarding Allied shipping routes in the Mediterranean. This was a strategic move to counter the growing threat of German U-boats, which had begun to target merchant ships with increasing frequency. Japan's naval contributions included the escorting of Allied convoys, protecting vital shipping lanes, and preventing German submarines from disrupting Allied logistics. Japanese warships worked alongside British, French, and other Allied naval forces, showcasing Japan's growing naval prowess and ability to operate far from its home waters. While Japan was focused on territorial expansion in Asia, its naval efforts in the Mediterranean were crucial for the success of the Allied forces. Japan's involvement in the Mediterranean marked a significant shift in its military strategy and showcased its growing capabilities as a naval power on the global stage. By 1917, Japan had firmly established itself as an essential partner in the Allied war effort, and its naval presence in the Mediterranean played a pivotal role in ensuring the security of Allied supply lines. With the end of World War I in sight, Japan's military operations would continue to shape its influence in the years to come. The strategic goals that Japan pursued during the war were not just about expanding territory, but also about solidifying its role as a global power. The success of Japan's naval operations in the Mediterranean was a clear indicator of its growing strength, and the alliance with Britain allowed Japan to secure its position on the world stage. As the war came to a close, Japan's contributions were recognized, and its role in the peace talks further elevated its international standing. As Japan's fleet engaged in escorting Allied convoys and participating in naval skirmishes, its professionalism and naval prowess became apparent. Next, we will dive into specific actions of Japanese destroyers and the sinking of the HMT Transylvania. The Japanese Imperial Navy's contribution to the Mediterranean theater of World War I was crucial, yet often overlooked. Japan's involvement was not only strategic, but also demonstrated its naval capabilities on a global stage, far beyond its home waters. The Japanese fleet was primarily tasked with escorting Allied ships, ensuring the safe passage of vital materials, and countering the growing threat posed by German submarines, particularly U-boats. The Mediterranean Sea, a critical theater for the Allies, saw Japanese destroyers such as the Matsu and Sakaki performing vital duties, highlighting Japan's increasing naval influence. The Japanese destroyers were especially important in ensuring the protection of troop transports and merchant convoys traveling across the Mediterranean and beyond. The most notable of these operations occurred in May 1917, when the HMT Transylvania, a troop ship, was struck by a German U-boat in the Gulf of Genoa. The Japanese destroyers Matsu and Sakaki were positioned nearby, tasked with escorting the ship. Upon hearing the distress signals, the Japanese destroyers quickly responded, offering assistance to the stricken vessel. The Transylvania had been severely damaged after being hit by 2 torpedoes, causing it to list and threaten to sink. In a remarkable demonstration of naval cooperation, the Japanese destroyers provided crucial assistance to the Transylvania. The Matsu moved alongside the ship to help steer it towards the coast for a potential beaching to prevent further loss of life, while the Sakaki hunted the attacking U-boat for over 20 minutes. Despite being under attack themselves, the Japanese destroyers were able to evacuate the troops on board, and although the ship ultimately sank, their efforts undoubtedly saved many lives. Of the 3,400 personnel on board, 270 perished. The British Admiralty later acknowledged the professionalism of the Japanese crews and expressed gratitude for their decisive actions. This incident reinforced the positive perception of the Japanese fleet within the British ranks, despite earlier reservations. While the Japanese contributions were significant, the incident also highlighted the risks posed by modern submarine warfare. Just a month later, in June 1917, the Sakaki itself fell victim to a torpedo attack by the Austro-Hungarian submarine U-27 off the coast of Crete. The attack resulted in significant damage, killing 2/3 of the crew, including the ship's captain. Despite the extensive damage, the ship managed to stay afloat and was later repaired. This incident underscored the dangers that the Japanese fleet faced in the Mediterranean, as it was becoming increasingly involved in direct confrontations with Axis submarines. As the war continued, Japan's naval presence in the Mediterranean grew in significance. In July 1917, reinforcements arrived in the form of the Momo-class destroyers, which were newer and more advanced than the earlier ships. These additions to the fleet allowed Japan to bolster its escort duties, enhancing the protection of Allied shipping. The Japanese also sent their veteran cruiser, the Nishin, to further strengthen their position in the Mediterranean. By the end of the war, the Japanese squadron had escorted 788 Allied ships and safely transported over 700,000 troops across the Mediterranean. The fleet encountered German and Austro-Hungarian submarines on numerous occasions, and while the Japanese destroyers did not sink any U-boats, their presence played a critical role in deterring further attacks and minimizing Allied shipping losses. Japan's actions in the Mediterranean were pivotal in ensuring the success of Allied operations. By the time the war ended, Japan had secured its place as a major global naval power. In recognition of their sacrifice, a memorial was erected in Malta to honor the 78 Japanese sailors who had fallen in the Mediterranean, 73 of whom were buried there. Unfortunately, this memorial was destroyed during World War II, but the recognition of Japan's contributions to the war effort remained. The Japanese fleet's actions in the Mediterranean, while often overshadowed by other major naval engagements, played a crucial role in maintaining the integrity of Allied shipping routes. Their efforts not only provided vital support during the war, but also solidified Japan's standing as a naval power capable of operating far from its own shores. Japan's involvement in World War I marked a pivotal moment in its emergence as a global power significantly impacting its military, economy, and international standing. The impact of Japan's participation in the conflict stretched far beyond the immediate military contributions, influencing the nation's trajectory in ways that would shape its future throughout the 20th century. Military engagement and territorial gains. Entering the war in August 1914 as an ally of Britain, Japan swiftly seized German-controlled territories in the Pacific and China. This included the occupation of Tsingtao, Germany's East Asian naval base, and various Pacific islands such as the Marianas, Carolines, and Marshalls. These actions expanded Japan's imperial holdings and strategic influence in East Asia. By defeating German forces in the region, Japan not only established its military dominance, but also secured its position as a major player in the geopolitics of Asia. This would be a crucial stepping stone in Japan's imperial ambitions, setting the stage for its later expansion throughout the Pacific. Economic expansion. The war catalyzed Japan's industrial sector. With European powers preoccupied with the war in Europe, Japan filled global supply gaps, leading to a surge in exports. The industrial boom was substantial, and by the end of the war, Japan had transformed from a debtor nation to one of the world's leading creditors. However, this economic surge was not without its problems. The rapid growth caused inflation and social unrest, which culminated in the 1918 rice riots, reflecting the growing discontent among the Japanese population due to rising living costs. Despite these domestic challenges, Japan's economic position in Asia and the world was vastly strengthened by the war, providing the foundation for future expansion and power. Post-war diplomatic success and growing influence. At the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, Japan was granted a permanent seat on the League of Nations Council, signifying its rise to the ranks of the world's major powers. The Treaty of Versailles recognized Japan's territorial gains and solidified its position as a key player in international diplomacy. However, Japan's experience at the peace talks left it with a sense of dissatisfaction, particularly regarding its proposal for a racial equality clause, which was rejected by the Western powers. This rejection fueled growing anti-Western sentiment within Japan, as many began to view the West as hypocritical and dismissive of Japan's legitimate aspirations. The rise of militarism and nationalism. As Japan's economic and territorial power grew, so did the rise of militarism and nationalism within the nation. This was a direct result of Japan's increased influence in Asia and its desire to protect and expand its interests. The belief in Japan's destiny as a dominant power in East Asia began to gain widespread popularity. The military became a central force in Japanese society, with the government increasingly driven by military leaders and nationalistic ideologies. By the mid-1920s, Japan had become more assertive in its foreign policy, and this militaristic spirit would lay the groundwork for its actions in the decades that followed. Anti-Western sentiment and future implications. The rejection of the racial equality clause at the Versailles Conference was not the only incident that fueled anti-Western sentiment in Japan. The failure of the West to recognize Japan's rising power, combined with the treatment it received at the peace talks, sparked a growing sense of resentment. The nation's leadership, including the military, began to advocate for Japan's need to stand on its own, free from Western interference. This sentiment would become a key driver of Japan's future actions, including its eventual departure from the League of Nations in 1933, as it sought to create its own sphere of influence in Asia. The foundations of Japanese expansionism, laid during and after World War I, would directly lead to its involvement in World War II, where the desire to challenge Western imperialism and establish a greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere would dominate Japanese foreign policy. The rise of militarism and nationalism in Japan after World War I set the stage for its future conflicts. In conclusion, we will reflect on how Japan's legacy from World War I influenced its future path. In conclusion, Japan's naval power during World War I helped establish it as a major global power. The impact of its contributions continues to resonate today. Japan's swift military successes in the Pacific and its strategic involvement in safeguarding Allied shipping routes not only bolstered its imperial ambitions, but also enhanced its reputation on the world stage. These early displays of military prowess allowed Japan to secure key territories, such as those taken from Germany in the Pacific, which expanded its influence in East Asia. The aftermath of the war saw Japan emerge as a key player in international diplomacy, most notably through its position at the Paris Peace Conference. However, despite its contributions, Japan faced significant dissatisfaction with the post-war order, especially when its racial equality clause was rejected. This left a lasting sense of injustice and fostered a growing resentment towards the West. Looking ahead, Japan's post-World War I trajectory was heavily influenced by its growing militarism and nationalism. These elements laid the groundwork for Japan's aggressive foreign policies in the 1930s and its eventual participation in World War II. The war marked the beginning of Japan's rise as a global power, and the legacy of its World War I contributions would play a crucial role in shaping the nation's future path.